I'm Ryan, employed as a chauffeur for a female executive. My boss, Ms. Smith, is renowned for her charitable contributions. As I waited outside a restaurant, anticipating the end of her dinner meeting, Ms. Smith emerged, greeting me warmly. I opened the car door for her, but suddenly, a gruff voice interrupted us. A man, unmistakably from the underworld, approached with 7 tough-looking associates. I hurriedly tried to drive away, but a thug blocked our path. Regrettably, in my haste, I'd forgotten to lock the doors. The men forcibly removed us from the vehicle. One thug, Jake, recognized Ms. Smith from TV. Excited by her wealth and appearance, he declared his intentions. Ms. Smith calmly inquired about their motives. Jake, introducing himself as the Golden Viper's right-hand man, demanded money, referencing her recent charitable donations. Jake suggested she redirect her generosity towards them. Ms. Smith firmly refused, stating her preference for helping those truly in need. Enraged by her defiance, Jake grabbed her arm, threatening to take her to their office for persuasion. As I moved to intervene, Ms. Smith stopped me. She agreed to go with them but pleaded for my release, describing me as just a driver. Touched by her selflessness, I stepped in, declaring I couldn't abandon my benefactor. Jake, amused by my bravery, decided to bring me along. We were forced into their car and taken to their office. Upon arrival, Jake confirmed his boss's absence and led us to his private room. Inside, Jake renewed his demands for money. When Ms. Smith refused again, he struck her. Enraged, I retaliated, managing to land 2 punches before Ms. Smith urged me to stop. As we were manhandled through the office, I muttered about the familiar surroundings. In Jake's room, he continued pressuring Ms. Smith for the $1 million. Her refusal led to another assault, prompting my intervention despite her pleas for restraint. Ms. Smith's voice halted me. I knew I could easily overpower these thugs and rescue her, but doing so might expose my history. I looked at Ms. Smith, realizing that revealing my past could cost me my job. As I hesitated, a burly gangster tackled me from behind, and another started pummeling me. Unable to fight back, I endured their blows. Ms. Smith rushed to my aid, cradling my head and apologizing tearfully. Jake, pointing to his bruised cheek, demanded an additional $2 million. He crudely insulted Ms. Smith, calling her an old hag and giving her an ultimatum: pay up or face dire consequences. His words infuriated me, but I remained helpless on the floor. Ms. Smith bit her lip. Deep in thought, I called out to her, worried she might be considering their demands. She assured me she'd find a solution. Jake, growing impatient, grabbed Ms. Smith's chin roughly, forcing her to look at him. He increased his demand to $3 million, threatening her life if she refused. Seeing tears in Ms. Smith's eyes, my anger boiled over. I couldn't stand by while they insulted and threatened someone I deeply respected. Despite the risks of exposing my past, I decided I had to act. I gently reassured Ms. Smith and stood up, ignoring her pleas for caution. I swiftly knocked out one of the larger thugs with a jaw punch, catching them off guard. As I continued to take down the gangsters effortlessly, Jake backed away in shock and fear. Ms. Smith watched in amazement as I dispatched the remaining thugs. I approached Jake last, delivering a powerful blow to his stomach. Turning to Ms. Smith, I offered my hand with a reassuring smile, suggesting we leave immediately. As we exited, Jake shouted threats about retribution, but we ignored him. In the office, some older gang members seemed to recognize me, but I pressed on without acknowledging them. Once safely away, I apologized to Ms. Smith for endangering her. She thanked me for saving her and promised not to pry into my past until I was ready to share it. This assurance relieved me, knowing I could continue working for her. However, I remained wary, certain that Jake wouldn't give up easily. A week later, I was waiting in the car for. Ignoring the frightened employees, Ms. Smith bravely stepped forward, ordering everyone to evacuate quickly as she would handle the situation. Glaring at Jake, she refused to back down. Despite his threats, Jake grabbed Ms. Smith by the collar, choking her. I rushed to her defense, demanding he release her. Jake mocked my defiance, insisting I hand over the $3 million and myself to be beaten. Miss Smith steadfastly refused. Even as Jake lifted her off the ground, unable to stand by, I landed a solid punch on Jake's face, causing him to spit blood. He ordered his men to attack me, confident they could overcome me this time with their weapons. Ignoring Miss Smith's desperate pleas, I charged at the thugs. Despite their mocking laughter at my unarmed approach, I swiftly and systematically took them down one by one, my skills proving superior to their uncoordinated attacks. As fewer and fewer gangsters remained standing, Jake's smug confidence gave way to disbelief at my overwhelming dominance. The last thug left, and he frantically tried to attack me, but I effortlessly slammed him to the ground. Battered and bruised, Jake tried to threaten me with his position as the right-hand man of the Golden Vipers, but I dismissed his bluster, delivering a powerful kick that left him doubled over in pain. With the room now silent, I turned my attention to Miss Smith, who had been watching me intently. She looked puzzled, asking who I truly was, as I had promised she wouldn't have to inquire. All I could offer was a reassuring smile, realizing I could no longer keep my past hidden. Given everything that had transpired, I realized it was time to reveal my past. There was no point in staying silent any longer. Just as I was about to speak, Jake interrupted by shouting, "Damn it, this isn't over. You'll pay for this. Miss Smith, please wait a moment." I kneeled down in front of Jake, who was clutching his stomach and whining. "You better remember this. I'll bring this company down, no matter what it takes." Jake spat venomously as he sat on the floor. I sighed, still not giving up. Fine, I'll call your boss for you." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. "Who are you calling? The cops?" "Ha, good luck with that. The police around here are in our pocket." Jake sneered, thinking he had the upper hand. But I just grinned. "I'm not calling the cops. I'm calling your boss." "Boss Carson?" Jake asked in confusion. "That's right, Boss Carson, the head of the Golden Vipers." The phone rang a few times before someone finally picked up. "This is Carson." "Who's this? I don't recognize the number." "Hello, it's been a while. This is Ryan." When I introduced myself, I heard Carson sharply inhale in surprise. "Ryan, it's been a long, long time. What's going on?" Jake, the right-hand man of the Golden Vipers, and some of his lackeys caused a scene at my workplace. "I've got them detained. Can you come pick them up? Give me the address." "You're there too, right?" "I'll be there immediately." After giving him the address of the company, he quickly ended the call. "All right, he'll be here soon." "How do you even know his number?" Jake asked in confusion. But then a sly grin spread across his face. "Well, whatever. When he gets here, you're finished," Jake boasted. A few minutes later, Boss Carson literally burst into the room, followed by several of his men. He was out of breath, clearly having rushed to get there. "You got here fast, Carson. I thought you'd take longer." "It was much quicker than I expected." Breathing heavily, likely from rushing to prevent me from leaving, Carson caught his breath. Jake spoke up, "Boss, do something about this jerk." He laid hands on me, the right-hand man of the Golden Vipers, and my men. "If you let this slide, I'll lose all respect." Still thinking Carson was on his side, Jake shouted in frustration. But Carson didn't even glance at him. "Ryan, is it really you? It's been so long." With those words, he embraced me, tears streaming down his face. "Boss, you know this guy?" Jake asked, shocked by his strange behavior. "What?" "Boss Carson, the head of the Golden Vipers, knows Ryan." "What's going on?" It wasn't just Jake who was shocked. Miss Smith, who had been quietly observing the situation, also spoke up in surprise. "I've kept my past hidden, but I used to be the right-hand man of the Golden Vipers 8 years ago. Yes, I have no criminal record, but it's true, I was part of the Golden Vipers. After a certain incident, I left the Mafia world and was taken in by this company. Wait, you were the right-hand man of my organization? Jake exclaimed. And Carson continued the story. Yes, Ryan was the most trusted right-hand man I ever had. And he was even a candidate to be the next boss. But during a gang conflict, Ryan was in a serious car accident when a rival group rammed his car. He lost his fiancée in that accident, and after that, he decided to leave the Mafia's life. That's right. It's all in the past now, but I'm just so glad to see you again. So, you were our right-hand man. I've heard legends about your strength, but you had already retired by the time I joined, so I never saw your face. Jake then dropped to his knees and bowed deeply to me. What's with calling me like that? The way he groveled made my skin crawl. In the Golden Vipers, you are a legend. I had no idea it was you. Please forgive me for my ignorance. Jake bowed so low that his forehead nearly smacked the floor. I looked at him with cold eyes, unmoved by his sudden apology. After everything you've done, an apology doesn't mean anything to me, boss. I know it's not my place as someone who's left the organization. But say whatever you need to, Ryan. Then I'll be frank. Do you know that Jake has been targeting civilians? A right-hand man who openly attacks companies during the day isn't doing the organization any favors. You're right. I didn't realize he'd gone this far. Carson nodded at my words, falling silent for a moment as he pondered. It's strange that this hasn't blown up into a bigger problem before now. Boss, I apologize. I might have gone a bit too far this time, but I was about to get $3 million from this woman. I plan to give a good portion of it to the organization as a tribute. Sorry, I was being short-sighted. Jake quickly bowed his head as Carson shouted at him, abusing your position as a sub and endangering the organization cannot go unpunished. I will strip you of your position and expel you from the Golden Vipers to hold you accountable. That's fair. I nodded, pleased with his decision. Jake's face turned pale at the mention of expulsion. Wait, please, you can't just expel me without warning. Wouldn't a demotion or pay cut be more appropriate? Are you challenging the boss's orders? Carson punched Jake, knocking him to the other end of the room. You brought this on yourself. You never had what it takes to be the Golden Viper's handmaiden. I was wrong to put you in Ryan's place after he left. No, I'm not worthy of being a handmaiden. Please reconsider that decision. I can still be of use to the Golden Vipers. Jake staggered, fell to his knees, and clung to Carson's legs. You've been good to me since I joined the Golden Vipers. I have tried to repay your kindness. Please forgive me. Jake cried, but Carson ignored him. It's time for him to answer for his actions. Any suggestions? I looked at Ms. Smith and pointed at Jake. Ms. Smith has been directly affected by this man, so it's only fair that she decide what happens to him. I get to decide. Ms. Smith asked, looking a little unsure, and looked at Carson. Yes, the organization has already ruled him out, the decision is yours. I want him to work for the benefit of those in need. There are so many people in Japan who are suffering, and there are always not enough laborers. I want him to work to help others. That's an interesting suggestion. We have a nursing home that operates separately from the Golden Vipers. Maybe we could send him there. A nursing home? No, I'm not doing that. Jake tried to refuse, but Carson gave him a stern look. Shut up. Working there isn't such a punishment. Here's what we'll do, he'll donate half his salary, and we'll assign someone to watch him 24 hours a day so he doesn't cause trouble and actually works. Ms. Smith smiled at Carson. That's a wonderful idea. It's a very peaceful solution. In true Ms. Smith fashion. I couldn't help but smile at her kindness. Hey, you can't just decide my fate without my consent. What about my opinion? Jake exclaimed indignantly. You have no say when it comes to your punishment, Carson cut Carson off, dismissing Jake's protests. No, I'm not going to work in some nursing home. I'm not doing that. So be it. If you don't go willingly, we'll have to take you there by force, Carson said, ordering his men to grab Jake. Let me go. I was a handyman. Jake resisted, but the men tied his hands and feet and lifted him off the floor. I'm not taking care of old people in a nursing home, no. Jake continued to scream and resist. I sighed and leaned over to him and whispered, "We could have lied to Ms. Smith, said we sent you to a nursing home, and actually thrown you in the ocean. I'm sure Boss Carson was ready to make you disappear for real. You should be thankful you're still breathing. The ocean is how the mob settles things. Ms. Smith is being merciful by letting you work at the nursing home. Ocean or nursing home, that's right. If you don't want to work, fine, we'll send you swimming. But if you want to avoid that, you better start cooperating." Jake looked at me, realizing I was serious. "Okay, I'll work at the nursing home," he nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Well, if you're willing to volunteer." "That's the best outcome," Ms. Smith said, unaware of my threat, and clapped her hands together, smiling. "We'll untie your legs so you can walk on your own." Carson's men set Jake on the floor, and I untied his legs. Jake stood up and, standing in front of Ms. Smith and Carson, bowed his head. "I have decided to repent and work at the nursing home. Please watch me to make sure I do it right." Ms. Smith smiled at his statement. "Of course, I'll make sure you do a good job," she said, still smiling at me. Well, he'd be supervised 24/7 in a world he once despised. Taking care of the most ordinary people he used to despise is the perfect punishment for such a proud man. He may think it's better than being thrown into the ocean, but I can already imagine the hardships he'll face. "Good luck," I said, extending my hand to Jake for a handshake. As soon as he grabbed it, I squeezed his fingers so hard that he winced in pain. Leaning toward him, I whispered in a low voice, "I'll be watching you. The minute you take one step sideways, you're gone. Don't think Ms. Smith will always be there to protect you." Making my point clear, I let go of his hand and smiled warmly. The now clearly frightened Jake didn't resist any longer and walked out of the company at his own pace. It had been 6 months since Jake had been sent to the nursing home. He was useless at first, but now I hear he's settling into his new place. He even wrote a letter recently, thanking Ms. Smith. It's amazing what a change of scenery can do to a person. Who'd have thought this guy would turn out to be a decent man? Jake now says that working in a nursing home has become his calling. And I continue to work as Ms. Smith's driver, never once broaching the subject of my past. I always knew that sooner or later this day would come, and so, 6 months after the incident, it finally did. I was called into the CEO's office. Apparently, she had finally decided that she couldn't keep a former mobster on her staff. "Okay, I'll take this with dignity and thank her for everything," I thought as I knocked on the door. "It's Ryan," I walked in. As I entered the room, I saw Ms. Smith sitting there looking a little nervous. "Please sit down." I sat down in the chair across from her, noticing that she hesitated to answer. She's too kind to dismiss someone easily. I guess that's why it's so hard for her to say it. I thought. I'm sorry for hiding my past. I knew I'd have to quit if my Mafia background came to light. Ah, I see. Yes, I wanted to stay close to you to help someone who cares so much about others. Thanks for everything. Wait, you called me in to fire me, right? No, I want you to stay with me. But not as CEO and driver. You won't agree to date me with the prospect of marriage? Ms. Smith asked, her face flushed and her voice trembling. I was surprised at this unexpected turn of events, but replied with a smile, "If you don't mind me, I would be very honored by it."